All right, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for this presentation this evening. Thank you for your flexibility as we moved it online instead of in person as we usually do on during our Thursday lectures, but we're glad you can join us online as well. So we're very lucky to be joined by two wonderful speakers today from Nova Community College and Monroe Community College as well. I'll let them introduce themselves in a moment, but they have a really interesting presentation about a very particular and very unknown so far in Ukraine aspect of the U.S. higher education system. Just a reminder that if you're joining us online, as you all are, there's a chat function at the bottom. So if any questions come up during the presentation, please feel free to write them in the chat box or wait till the end and we'll have time for questions and answers. So with that, Carly and Stacy, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you everyone. It's nice to be here. We heard that you're all sitting at home with schools closed due to the worldwide pandemic, this coronavirus that's really impacting all of us. We were just talking that we're taking a lot of precautions here in the US, and so I know that here at our college we'll be teaching online going into next week, so everyone's busy running around making plans on how we're going to be servicing our students, but we're very happy to be here with you online this evening for you. It's just early or late morning for us, but my name is Stacy Bustillos. I am actually the Associate Director for the Office of International Education and Sponsored Programs at Northern Virginia Community College. We are right outside of Washington, D.C., of course, the capital of the U.S., and I'll give my colleague to introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carly O'Keefe. I'm the coordinator in the Office of International Services at Monroe Community College, and we're located in Rochester, New York, which is in the upstate area of New York State, upstate and the western area. So we're not in New York City like a lot of people think of when they think of New York. We're a few hours outside.
Great. So we thought today, because we know that the U.S. community college system is not very well known in the Ukraine, but there may be some reasons that you want to consider this option as an alternative pathway to pursuing your bachelor's degree in the United States. So we wanted to take the opportunity to share with you a little bit about what is a community college in the United States and explain how we fit in the U.S. higher education system. What benefits you as an international student may have in taking this path to the U.S. and to your bachelor's degree. And then we'll talk about both Carly's college and my college that are fairly different in different parts of the country, and share some of the unique aspects of each of our schools individually. And then if you have any questions at the end, we'd be happy to answer those for you. So we'll start off just by talking about what is the mission of a community college, because we are slightly different, although we are considered higher education, right? So education beyond high school in the United States, our mission is slightly different than a university. So this is kind of just the three main missions that we have as community colleges. And one is to increase access to higher education. So we are really open admissions institutions. So unlike the university, which is, usually universities are competitive, right? They're based on applications and review of applications and grades and all of that. And community colleges are open admissions. We're about giving more access to higher education to the community. We also, in our name, is community, right? And that's really about responding to the local needs of our community. And so what that means is what you'll really find is when you're looking at what programs that we offer, especially we'll get into that a little bit later, but we offer, we offer degrees that are meant to transfer onto university, but we also offer degrees that are more technical or vocational or tied more closely to our local industries. And so that's where we, respond to those local job needs, and you'll find that in a lot of our applied degree programs. And also we serve a diverse student population. So our students range anywhere from 18 years old right out of high school to maybe 40, 50 years old. We have mid-year career professionals that are coming back to community colleges to take courses to increase their skills. We have older students that come to take one or two classes. We have students from all different backgrounds. And so a classroom at a community college may be much more diverse in age, and experience than maybe at a university level. And so those are kind of the three big, I would say, differences maybe than a four-year university that you would find. So just to give you an idea, the community college model is huge. We are located all over the United States. We actually have just over 1,000 community colleges that exist throughout the United States. And this is a graphic just to show you where we exist, which is really where any major population of people live in the country is where you can find a community college. And so many of the community colleges are also tied to local universities. And that's one of the benefits we'll talk about a bit later, is the ability to transfer your credits from the community college onto a four-year institution. And you know, this isn't a small system. This is a nationwide system that we represent. Just to give you some quick statistics, in terms of the actual numbers of community colleges that exist in the United States, we are at 1,050 different community colleges that exist. And that may be one campus in one college, or a college like mine at Northern Virginia Community College. We are actually one college, but we have 6 locations throughout the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. We, again, as I mentioned about age, these are just average numbers, but you know, we have, most of our students are under 22 years old, but we have a good number that are between that 22 to 39-year-old. As I said, a lot of these people are working professionals or coming back to get a new skill set. And we have a group of students that are 40 plus that are here for lots of different reasons. And that, you know, you may find is very different than what you would find at a university. Our enrollments, we have a lot of students that are working. A lot of our American students are working and taking classes. So you'll see overall, many of our students, our full-time students, are part-time students. And then we've got about 36% of students at community colleges that are full-time students. And of course, as an international student, you would be expected to study full-time course load, just like you would at a university. So that means 12 credits minimum that you would need to study, and that's the same at a community college. Of course, overall in U.S. higher education, we see that there are increasingly more women than men enrolled, and that's the same as well at a community college, 57% women, 43% men. This gives you a good idea of where exactly the community college fits in the scale of academic degrees beyond high school. So really, there's high school diploma at the bottom of this triangle. Right after high school is where we fit in as the associate degree offering. So community colleges offer what is called an Associate of Arts or an Associate of Science degree, and we'll get into that, of course, in a little bit more detail down the road, but this is the degree that students would pursue after high school. If they don't choose to go directly to university, they can get their associate's degree for 2 years. They could go directly into the job market, or they could transfer on to a bachelor's degree and do another 2 years to finish their bachelor's degree. So we are that first degree level right out of high school. Of course, some students will come to us, or some will go directly to the bachelor's degree, but that is where we fit in the higher education scheme. Of course, and beyond bachelor's is master's and then doctorate. Now you might ask, why would I want to go to a community college? You know, will that make my transcript look different? Will I, how will I get a bachelor's degree? And I really want to say that, this is an alternative path. This is a different way to get your bachelor's degree. And we'll talk about these specific benefits of why you might consider this. So you see the traditional track of a student to get their bachelor's degree would be high school, applying directly into a 4-year university to start directly on the bachelor's degree track, and then end with their bachelor's degree. The alternative path is what you'll hear in the US called the 2+2 model. So it's after high school, you go into the community college to do the 2-year associate's degree. It might be a little bit more than 2 years. Some students we have, especially international students, will come to us and will need some additional English language courses. And so many community colleges also offer intensive English language programs or ESL courses that you can take while you're starting to do your academic courses. So that may add a little bit more than 2 years, because these are would be required to get you up to an English proficiency. So it's really the 2 years for the degree program, right, which is the associate's degree. but this is also can be considered the first 2 years of a bachelor's degree. So students can come to the community colleges and do the first 2 years there, and then transfer on to university as a third-year student and finish their third and fourth year at the university and get that same bachelor's degree that the student that would have gone directly to university would receive. So in the end, the product is the same, the path is a bit different. And we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. I just want to point out to you that when we talk about this 2+2 model, that students that come to Nova or that come to Monroe Community College, oftentimes they do go on and transfer to university, and both of our schools have transfer agreements with many different universities that accept our credits directly, that we already have a formal agreement with. And so this just gives you an idea of some of the top schools where students at Nova are transferring to or Monroe. And as you can see, you probably recognize some of these top university names. So our students are going on to these universities and sometimes even getting scholarships to transfer on to university to finish and get their bachelor's degrees at these types of institutions. Now, why would you consider coming to a community college? These are just 3 benefits that I want to touch upon right now. And one is affordability. And we'll show you a slide closer to the end of the presentation to actually show you the cost of our community colleges compared to going to our 4-year university partners, and it's quite drastic. So on the whole, community colleges are probably about 1/3 the cost of a university tuition. And so that's quite dramatic, both for an American student or for an international student that often has to pay out-of-state tuition rates, which are already quite high. So many students, both American and international, are figuring out that they can save quite a bit of money just in tuition cost alone by coming to a community college. We are affordable. As I mentioned before, we're also very accessible because our mission is open admissions, right? We're not competitive admissions. So I always like to say that everybody can get in, not everybody gets out, right? So we have standards. So again, the third part is accreditation. We are accredited by the same, I guess, organization that accredits the university, our university partners, right? So we have the same academic standards that we have to abide by that our university partners also have to follow. So we have similar curriculum. So if you're taking a Western civilization course, 100 level course at my community college, you could go and take that at a 4-year university in Virginia, and it would be the same course. So it's approved by the same academic body. So that's why the credits would be accepted from the community college onto the university. And so we have this accessibility in terms of our mission because we don't require, an SAT score or things like this. And it's fairly easy to get in, but we do have academic standards. So not everybody is successful in getting out. So that's a bit different than the university path. I'm going to pass it over to Carly to talk a little bit about community college admissions process and some more details about the degree programs that we do offer.
Thank you, Stacy. So as Stacy mentioned in her last slide, community colleges in the United States do have an open admissions policy. So that's probably a term that's very new to most people who are in a high school outside of the United States. An open admission policy basically means that if you meet the requirements and you send us the documents, you get accepted. You don't need to meet specific high school GPA requirements. You don't need to meet specific SAT or ACT score minimums in order to be admitted to a community college. What you really just need is proof of your high school completion or proof that your high school completion is in progress, of course. And then, depending on individual schools, we may require proof of your English language proficiency. So here at Monroe Community College, we do not have an intensive English or ESL pathway program the way that a school like Nova does. An intensive English or a pathway program could allow you the ability to start at a U.S. community college with very little English knowledge prior to starting, or, you know, a much lower level. Other schools like Monroe, we really require you to come in at a more advanced level. So we require you to submit a TOEFL score or an IELTS score. These are two English language proficiency tests that you may have heard of. Coming out of Ukraine, I would say probably the TOEFL is going to be the most common test that you may take for English language proficiency. So we require a minimum TOEFL score of 55 internet-based test, for example, or an IELTS score of 5.5 in order to be admitted to Monroe Community College. And that's because, like I said, we don't have lower level English, intensive English courses for you here. We do have an ESL program, however, it just starts at a more intermediate to advanced level. So if you come in at that lower end of the TOEFL spectrum, if you come in, you know, you've just met that minimum of 55 and you don't feel like you're ready to take on, for example, college level English composition courses, you know, we know that you won't be at that level just yet. So we would be able to enroll you in some ESL in addition to your academic courses. So you might be in, you know, between 4 to 7 credits of ESL, but also in your math, you know, your required math courses or your business courses or whatever academic program that you're pursuing. So it's kind of a nice mix that gets you up to speed with your English language, while also being able to study courses that are related to your major at the same time. In an intensive English program, you typically only be focusing all of your time on studying English. And that could be for, you know, just a semester, it could be for a year, however long you're needing to be at that level. And then after you've finished that program, you have the ability to matriculate as a full-time student in an academic program at Nova, or I'm sure, Stacey, you probably also have students that come and only study intensive English at Nova and then elect to transfer to another institution for their academic program.
Yeah,
and then, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we do have an intensive English program which doesn't require any TOEFL or IELTS scores. You can come at 0, although we don't recommend that because it's also harder, I think, to get your visa. But we do have many students that come in that may want to be pursuing a master's degree, but will just come in and do our intensive English program and then transfer on to their master's degree program and may not even study the associate's degree. But most of our students will do the intensive English if that's where they start, and then go on to the associate's degree and then transfer on.
Okay. So we also wanted to touch a little bit on the types of degrees and types of programs that community colleges offer in the United States. So there's really 2 types of 2-year degrees that community colleges offer. The first kind is going to be an Associate of Applied Arts or an Associate of Applied Sciences. And these are 2-year programs that are really intended for direct entry into the workplace. Although some credits may transfer to a 4-year university if you decide that that's the route you want to go afterwards. But it really is more designed for students who either want to work directly here in the United States or maybe return home and go directly into the workplace after finishing their program. The other pathway is an Associate of Arts or an Associate of Science, and that's intended for transfer to a 4-year university. So it's really the first 2 years of the curriculum of a 4-year program. So those are going to be courses like your general education requirements, like Stacey mentioned, you know, you might have some Western civilizations courses, you know, English composition, mathematics, social sciences, natural sciences, but you'll also take some introductory and mid-level courses in your particular major. So with an Associate of Arts or an Associate of Science, it's not designed for that direct entry into the workplace. It's kind of like doing half of your bachelor's degree at the community college level. So we wanted to give some examples of those technical degree programs versus the transfer programs. So here is a pretty comprehensive list of technical degree programs that are common at U.S. community colleges. And those will range from things like heating, air conditioning, automotive technology, precision machining. So some of those skilled trades that students can learn, but we also have things that you might not realize might only be a 2-year program. Things like cybersecurity or computer and networking technology, certain electrical and mechanical technologies, also a lot of health programs, nursing, dental assisting, things like that, physical therapy assisting, those can all be 2-year programs as well that will lead students directly into the workplace following completion. And then these are some examples of some top university transfer degrees, especially for international students. We see a lot of students at business administration programs, whether they're interested in going on to complete a business degree, an accounting degree, a finance degree, computer science, communications, engineering, fine arts. Like we have a lot of students that are interested in design. There's also IT, information technology, and different sciences. So like biology, chemistry, physics. You can start at a community college in those types of programs and then go on and finish them at a 4-year school. I also wanted to mention, what's really common, a lot of students will just pursue a liberal arts general studies type of program, which gets them the 2-year degree and can set them up to transfer into kind of a multitude of different 4-year bachelor's degree programs. But I think it is better in some cases to have a little bit of focus. If you know what you want to go on for eventually, it's good to start in a 2-year program that's got a little bit more focus, but it's not necessary. And that's the beauty of the U.S. higher education system, I think, is that it does have a lot of flexibility for students. You don't have to necessarily know what you want to study right away. You can take some time and explore some different areas and courses before you make a decision. Okay, and then we did want to cover, of course, some of those benefits of studying at a U.S. community college, which may not be familiar to you. So one huge thing is that at a community college, there is a focus specifically on teaching and learning. At U.S. 4-year universities and colleges, research is a required component for faculty members to get tenure. So they have to split their time between teaching, service, and research, which means a lot of times their teaching sometimes takes a back seat to their research, because research can be extremely demanding and time intensive for faculty members. At a community college, because research is not a required component of their tenure, they're really focused on the students, teaching in the classroom and serving students. All of the classes at a community college are going to be taught by faculty. They're not going to be taught by like doctorate teaching assistants. And these faculty at community colleges, they still have advanced degrees. Many of them do have PhDs, like faculty members at a 4-year college or university. Some of them may be at master's level, but in that case, a lot of those teachers have had real experience in the workplace that they can reflect on as well in their instruction. As well, many community colleges have small class sizes, which provides a lot more opportunity for discussion amongst students in the classroom and direct discussion with faculty members. There's just a lot more direct interaction that you get to the faculty members. I would say here at Monroe, an average class size is probably like 30 students. So it's really, you know, a much more intimate learning environment than if you go to a large university where you may be in an introductory calculus class with 400 students in a lecture hall. So at a community college, professors really get to know the students. They're very available. You know, they hold office hours, review sessions, things of that nature. And I would say that they're really, you know, nurturing, as opposed to, you know, at a four-year university, you might not get that from every teacher. In addition to the academic side, you know, we have a lot of programs designed to support student success at community colleges. We know that we have students who may need a little bit more of a boost in the classroom. So we have a lot of programs designed to assist with both academic and social needs. So we have a lot of tutoring centers, department-based learning centers. We also have a lot of programs that address social needs. So we do have social programming, weeks of welcome programming. We even have programs that address things like food insecurity and hunger, and have students have access to a lot of opportunities for free food and things like that. We also have on-campus housing offered at some community colleges. I know Monroe, we have 4 pretty new, beautiful residence halls here on our campus. And those opened about 10 years ago. And so just because a student goes to a community college, that doesn't mean that they have to sacrifice that, you know, want for a close-knit college community that is available at some community colleges. Other community colleges in the United States haven't moved in that direction yet, or don't plan to. They, you know, do not offer on-campus housing, so they are still commuter schools, but they a lot of times do offer a lot of apartment complexes and housing close to campus, so students will still be, you know, close by to a lot of other students that go to their community college. Another thing I wanted to mention that I know may be of interest to students is work opportunities in the United States. I know that's becoming a bigger and bigger interest as time goes on. Students want to know, how am I going to get that practical experience while I'm still in school? So US federal regulations do limit the amount that international students can work in the United States on and off campus. Students can work on campus without any sort of special permission, up to 20 hours per week while school is in session, or up to 40 hours per week on vacation periods. The off-campus opportunities for off-campus work are very limited from a regulatory perspective. They do require permission to work off campus, either from the federal government or from your international student office. So optional practical training, called OPT, is an opportunity for students to apply to the US federal government for off-campus work permission. That can be during their time while they're still a student, but more often that benefit is used at the end of the student's academic program. So they'll apply to the government in their last semester for permission to work for 1 year in the United States following the end of their academic program. And they're applying, they don't have to have a job offer at the time they apply, but once they do get a job offer, it has to be within their field of study. So that's a great option for students if they've finished a 2-year program and they want to take a little bit of time to get some work experience before they perhaps go on for their bachelor's degree. That gives them, you know, a year to get some experience, get some exposure to the US work environment, make sure that that's the area of study that they actually want to, you know, pursue further. Another opportunity is called curricular practical training, or CPT. And we use this a lot more in colleges and universities in the US for students to pursue internships while they're still working on their academic program. So whether that's an internship that they're taking on during a regular academic semester or over a summer break period, that may not be available at every institution. It depends. So here at Monroe, we have specific academic programs that have an internship or co-op component that is required and built directly into the curriculum of the major. So that would be like our accounting and bookkeeping program, our sports management program, our entrepreneurship program. Like there are a few programs specifically where that's built in, and students could receive off-campus work authorization through CPT to make sure that they're fulfilling that requirement of their program. We also have plenty, the majority of our programs do not have that co-op or internship component built directly into the curriculum, but we do offer courses here that are called experience-based learning courses. So if a student wanted to take an experience-based learning course to fulfill an elective requirement or something of that nature, they could register for that, and they would be able to get work permission to pursue an internship related to their field in that way. And I don't know if Stacy, if you want to chime in here about anything specific that Nova might have in terms of work authorization or internship or co-op experiences.
Yeah, we have a few, but again, not in every course. I know in interior design, in our business programs, we've got opportunities there. I think in our film program, film production, there's a built-in internship opportunity. And I think our automotive program. So not too many, but there are opportunities for students at community colleges to get some work experience in their field of study. Yeah. We have more in the OPT, so after they finish their associate's degree, we have more students taking that opportunity to do after they finish their degree.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's going to vary depending on school, academic program, and just what the students' plans are. So.
All right. Well, I think we're going to move in now to just talk a little bit, now that you have an overview of what a community college is, some of the benefits that we all share in terms of the type of degree that we offer and the type of students that we're serving. We just wanted to share a little bit about each of our two community colleges, just to give you some examples of different types of schools. And so at Northern Virginia Community College, we are located right outside of Washington, D.C. So we're in the state of Virginia, but we're really considered in the suburban area, metropolitan area of the capital city. And we have 6 campuses, so we're quite large. Each of our campuses is probably a good 30 minutes or more from one another. It's our largest campus being the Annandale campus. We are actually, Northern Virginia Community College is the largest higher education institution in the state of Virginia. So we have about 74,000 students that we enroll. Those includes full-time and part-time students, but we are quite large. We are the second largest community college in the United States. We offer over 120 degree programs, and we have over 40 guaranteed transfer agreements to 4-year institutions. In terms of our international student population, we have about 1,100 international students that are studying with us on F1 or J1 visas. And we have, as of this semester, 122 countries represented, and only 3 students from Ukraine. So we would love to have more Ukrainian students studying with us. As you can see, our top 10 international student population really includes students from all over the world. So being close to the capital city, we are just naturally a diverse area of the country, and so that is represented really by our student population. And as we mentioned earlier, one of the big benefits to come to a community college, both for American students and international students, is the cost savings. And I pulled up an example of one of our top universities in the state of Virginia, University of Virginia. It's one of our largest and one of our most popular institutions. And I'm showing the cost for an international student, right? So if you were to come and want to study at University of Virginia, your cost of tuition alone would, for full-time, right, 12 credits for the year, would be about $48,000. On top of that, you have your living expenses, right? So at UVA, at University of Virginia, it's about $14,000. and then of course books and supplies. So in total, you're looking as an international student for 1 year, close to $64,000 in total for 1 year. Now, if you decided to go to a community college first, and if you decided to go to Nova, you can see the vast difference in cost and tuition. So our tuition at Nova for 1 year for an international student is close to $9,300. Our living expenses are fairly high because we are near the capital city. We do not have dormitories. So all of our students are living either in apartments. Some of them are here staying with family or friends. Or in some cases, we have the ability to connect you with host families as well near some of our campuses. So this is an estimated cost because we do not have dormitories. This is the estimated cost of what it would cost for you to live on your own for 1 year. You may end up paying less than this, but this is what we estimate our students should have. And of course, we also have estimates for books and supplies. And our total cost for an F1 student, for an international student, is only $24,400. So as you can imagine, saving $40,000 over at least 2 years, right? If you came to Nova for 2 years, you would be saving, close to $80,000 before you went on to the university. And we have a transfer agreement with the University of Virginia. So we have many students that transfer in guaranteed in their 3rd year to go to UVA, as long as, of course, they maintain their grade point average that's required by UVA. And then they can go on to pay that tuition amount. What we found is that many of our international students are getting scholarships when they transfer on to universities. And at Nova, we hold at least once a year a transfer fair specifically for our international students, because we know that they're a population that's more willing to travel maybe outside of the Virginia, DC area. And so we have many of our students that will transfer on to universities across the country, in California, in the Midwest, up to New York, or Boston and Massachusetts. And so our students, our international students, are more mobile. So we bring in universities that maybe we don't even have a formal agreement with, but that the universities are still interested in attracting our students. And so you should, when you're looking at a community college, or if you have a university in mind, it doesn't necessarily mean that the community college must have an agreement with that university. The university has a transfer application process for any student that wants to come into the university after they've already started their studies at maybe another institution. And so there's a transfer of credit evaluation process. It's just that when the community college has the relationship with the university made already, that process is a little bit easier for the student to go through. And so this is just to give you a sense of our breakdown of costs. And I know that Carly will show hers for Monroe as well, but I'll let Carly share a little bit about Monroe Community College.
Sure. So I mentioned this a little bit in my introductions, but Monroe Community College is located in Rochester, New York. So we're not down by New York City. We're in, the more upstate western part of New York State. But Rochester is the 3rd most populous city in New York State, behind New York City and Buffalo. We have about 1.2 million people in the metropolitan area. So it still is a good mid-sized, very livable city. Cost of living is good. We're about a 1.5-hour drive to Niagara Falls. We're about a 3-hour drive to Toronto, which is great. A lot of our students do take the time to go and visit Toronto over school breaks. It's nice to be so close to another international city like that. And then we're about a 5.5-hour drive or 1-hour flight to New York City. We have about 9 other respected colleges and universities directly in the Rochester area, which are pretty popular for a lot of our students to transfer to following completion at Monroe. And a very interesting thing about Rochester is we have a very large Ukrainian community here, both of recent Ukrainian immigrants, but also Ukrainian Americans who have been here for, a generation or several generations. Webster, which is the name of a suburb located directly just outside the city of Rochester, it ranks number 8 in the United States for a percentage of residents born in Ukraine. So if a Ukrainian student came to Rochester, they would have, that community available to them. We have Ukrainian Cultural Community Center. We have many Ukrainian churches. We also have actually a Ukrainian Federal Credit Union here in the area. So that community is there for them to take advantage of if they would like to. Yeah. And then just some general information about Monroe. So Monroe Community College is part of the State University of New York system, also called the SUNY system, which is the largest higher education system in the United States. So that is all of the public colleges and universities located in New York State, outside of New York City. And that's about 60 colleges and universities. So as you can imagine, that's a really great system to be a part of, both in terms of resources, but also in terms of the options that students have for transferability. All of the SUNY colleges and universities make it a priority to have transferability between them be pretty simple and have the curriculum align well. So if a student wants to transfer from a school like Monroe to one of our more well-known universities, like the University at Buffalo or Binghamton or Stony Brook University, it's a fairly seamless transition, depending on the program, of course, but they've really tried to do their best, especially in the last several years or so, to make that much easier process for students. We are also the third largest community college in New York State. And we have over 100 degree and certificate programs and over 40 transfer agreements to four-year institutions. It's probably much higher than that, but it was hard to take a look and do the math with all the SUNY institutions as well. But that, like I said, that's going to include four-year comprehensive colleges within SUNY, our universities within SUNY, and then we also have transfer agreements with many other private colleges and universities within New York State and outside of New York State as well. And then total, we're significantly smaller than Nova. We have about 12,000 total students. We do have 4 campuses total, but the main campus here in Brighton is the one where the majority of students take their classes. The other campuses are a little bit more specialized. In terms of our international statistics, so we currently have about 100 international students at Monroe on an F1 visa. But kind of like Stacy mentioned, being a mid-sized city, we do have a fairly diverse population here at MCC, including a significant population of refugees and students who are recent immigrants to the Rochester area. So even though we have about 100 international students here on a visa, the overall international population feels much larger because we have students who are coming and facing a lot of the same challenges as our international students coming on a visa because they are also new to the United States themselves. So it's a great community, and we service all of those types of students in my office. We currently have 33 countries represented by students on F1 visas, including Ukraine, but that number is much larger, and I'm sure it's larger for Nova as well when you come to consider students who are coming as refugees or immigrants as well. And then you can see our list of top sending countries for our international students on an F1 visa. In terms of a cost comparison, I chose to compare MCC to both a private university that is located in the Rochester area and also one of our universities that is a public university within the State University of New York, the SUNY system. So as you'll see there, Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT, it's an internationally known, very highly respected institute of technology located just down the road. We have a lot of students transfer there, a lot of great transfer agreements with them as well. But you'll see the cost is very high given that it's a private institution. Students are going to expect to spend between tuition, fees, living expenses, health insurance, and books, over $68,000 a year to attend a private school like RIT. Same with the University of Rochester is another one right down the road that is pretty internationally known. Whereas if you choose to attend a public university here in New York State within the SUNY system, it is going to be significantly cheaper, with a total around $46,837, which is still quite high, for most families. So you'll see Monroe is about half of that. It's about half of even a public four-year institution to attend. So you can imagine the cost savings if you attended Monroe for 2 years and then University at Buffalo for 2 years. I think it's very much worth it for students to follow that path, just for cost savings alone. Because you're still coming out at the end with that bachelor's degree from that, wonderfully named four-year institution, but on the front end, you're still getting a wonderful education from a community college, and they're preparing you well for your studies, but you're saving so much. So that's really the end of our official presentation. So we wanted to say thank you to Education USA for hosting us today. And we wanted to take the opportunity, of course, to take questions that you all have been thinking of and sending over the course of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacy and Carly. That was super informative. And I think one thing that was helpful that you made clear during your presentation is that certainly in Ukraine, but also I think in America as well. But speaking about Ukraine, there's this sort of clear connotation about colleges versus universities, at least within the Ukrainian system. So I just wanted to highlight that one thing you really made clear is that community colleges are not like lower quality education institutions, that like community colleges aren't for people who couldn't get into university or something like that. Like it's actually a place where you can get more face-to-face time with your instructors, high quality facilities, really have more of a personal experience while saving a lot of money. So it's just an awesome opportunity and option, especially for international students.
Yeah, thank you. We think so.
Yeah. All right, let's open it up for questions. If you're joining us online, well, all of you are, go ahead and write your questions into the chat box, or there should be a raise your hand function at the bottom, and we can turn on your mic and allow you to answer a question. So we'll give everybody a minute to think of any questions you have for Stacy
Sure.
and Carly. While they're thinking, one thing that came up to me is you were sort of talking about more commuter colleges versus colleges that, might have housing on campus or might have more of a sort of on-campus feel. Do you think that that's would be an important consideration for an international student? Like, do you think an international student should really do thorough research into what kind of experience they would have there versus, if it's a commuter college versus living on campus or something like that?
Yeah, so what I do want to kind of make clear is even though Monroe does have on-campus housing available, we don't have housing capacity available for every student that attends Monroe. Mm-hmm. So it still is in a lot of ways, and this will be true for probably almost every community college in the United States. They still are by and large majority commuter campuses, meaning the majority of students are, commuting to school and then, at the end of the day, returning to their own apartment or living with family or homestay or whatnot. Mm-hmm. So it's not exactly the same as a residential campus where, for example, all undergraduate students are required to live on campus for 2 years. the feel will be different in that way. So if that's something that a student is seeking, that's a consideration that they want to take into account. However, because we do have residence halls on campus here at Monroe, our residence life department does work really hard to make sure that our residence students feel like they're part of a close-knit community here on the campus. They do programming, you know, they do work really hard to make sure that students feel like they are getting that experience. That being said, it's also definitely a different model in terms of the fact that like our residence halls are kind of more set up like in an apartment setting, where students are cooking the majority of their own meals, and rather than kind of a traditional dormitory where students live on a hall, have a hall bathroom. They go to a dining hall for all of their meals. So every campus is going to have a little bit of a different setup in terms of that. I'm just speaking to Monroe, but it is definitely a consideration. You know, in every campus, regardless if they have residence halls or not, they're going to have social programming. They're going to have opportunities for students to go to events and, you know, fun things going on campus, food, celebrating holidays, celebrating music, celebrating culture, where they're trying to bring students together, even though they don't live on campus. So there are going to be programming, events and fun opportunities no matter where you go, but it will just be kind of at a different level, probably depending on if they have residence halls or they don't.
Yeah, and just to point out, I mean, Nova and probably the same at Monroe, but we have very active student life offices on all of our campuses. So, and we have sports. So we have competitive sports. We have ice hockey and soccer and basketball and volleyball and track. What else do we have that are competitive? So we're competing against other community colleges. We also have intramural sports and clubs, right? So we have students that are active in athletics. We have lots of different clubs and activities. We have student government associations on every campus. We've got a lot of things happening all the time outside of the classroom. And so even though we do not have dormitories at Nova, we are very actively trying to create a campus community and getting students involved with all sorts of different clubs that are very similar to what you would find at a university. It's just that, you know, they're not there, you know, on the campus living, but we try to make it, you know, activities available after, in between classes as well. So there's always something going on outside of the classroom.
Yes, I will absolutely echo the same sentiments.
That's great. That's great to know that there's still ways for students to get involved after classes and really make it feel like home. I don't see any questions coming into the chat. So last call for questions online. Please don't be shy if you have any questions.
And I would also say, while we're still waiting, I always, when I talk to international students, when you're thinking about a community college, you may not be thinking about the name or knowing who the community college is. I always recommend that, you know, the international student usually has the goal of getting at least a bachelor's degree in the U.S., you know, when we see a lot of students coming. And so think about the school that your dream school or top schools that you have that are really competitive, or maybe you can't afford the full 4 years. Well, look at those universities and see which community colleges have transfer agreements with them, and kind of work backwards and see, you know, what is that alternative pathway that I can get to my ultimate goal. So it may not be, oh, I'm coming to the U.S. because I love Nova and I want to go to Washington, D.C., but I may love Virginia Tech or UVA, and I want to go there, but it's really competitive to get in, or to Cornell. I know that Monroe, you know, has students going to Cornell. You know, those are really top competitive schools. But as a strategy, if you look at the community colleges they work with and may have transfer agreements with, you know, going backwards and then saying, okay, well, you know, if I can't get in directly as a freshman at this 4-year institution, maybe I can go through the community college and then transfer in my 3rd year. And that's a strategy for getting into some top level schools that many international students hope to gain access. And of course, being able to afford those schools as well, a community college can be a tool in supporting those ultimate goals.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And the thought process of those 4-year universities in terms of competitiveness is if you can be successful for 2 years at a community college, that's why they're more likely to accept a transfer student.
Right.
Right,
Exactly.
because you're showing that you have the ability to perform well at the college level.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of, what college that is, you're showing them you have the ability to perform well at the college level, which as a high school student, you're taking the SAT and you have your GPA from high school, but those aren't necessarily always predictive of how you're going to do once you actually get to the college or university level. So when a college accepts a transfer student with a great GPA from a community college, they've really already kind of done the legwork and proving to them that they have the ability to perform well. So it's almost less of a gamble for them.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
right.
great.
Mm-hmm. All right, I don't see any questions, but one more thing, I'm sorry if you covered this and I missed it, but another great thing is that you often have later deadlines, is that correct, than 4-year universities, application deadlines, I mean?
Correct. Or rolling.
Yeah.
Very, very fluid deadlines. It's going to depend on the school, but yeah, that's definitely the case for us. I don't know if Nova wants to jump in.
We don't have rolling deadline, but we do usually have a later deadline than our 4-year partners. And so that's also another backup option for students that maybe don't get into their dream schools, but still want to come to the U.S. And again, that alternative pathway, the community college, is usually an option that students can go to, if they don't get into their dream school choices right up front, but can get to the U.S. And start their work, and then start planning for that transfer process.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Carly and Stacy. Just a reminder to all of our listeners, observers online, that their email addresses are there if you'd like to contact them. And of course, you're always welcome to come to the Education USA Advising Center on Plac Sportu Metro Station if you have any more questions about community colleges, want to ask about applying, how to afford it, everything like that. We're happy to help you as well. So Stacy and Carly, thank you so much for joining us. And this has been really great. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Bye-bye.
Bye.